All right, everybody, welcome back for another deep dive. Today, we're getting into something really interesting and really, really tasty.
Yeah,
We are talking about ground beef.
ground beef.
And, I think that everybody listening probably has some experience with ground beef.
Of course.
I mean, it's like
it's a staple.
it's such a staple.
It's in everybody's kitchen.
It's so versatile, too.
Generally.
I mean, you can make so many different things with it.
Right, and that's what's great about it for feeding families.
Exactly.
It's pretty inexpensive. You can usually find it on sale somewhere.
Yeah.
And it's really easy to cook with too.
And it's easy to cook with.
Yeah.
Yeah. And our source material today actually goes into a bunch of like different recipes
Yeah.
that you can make with ground beef that I think will be really fun to kind of go through. And
Yeah. It's like a global tour of ground beef cuisines.
Yeah.
We're talking about Italian, we're talking Mexican.
Yeah.
Good old American comfort food.
Oh. Let's jump into it. Why don't we start with the Italian side of things?
All right.
We've got spaghetti bolognese.
The classic.
Classic spaghetti bolognese.
Yeah.
Now I got to be honest, like when I make spaghetti bolognese at home, I usually just use
Jar of sauce.
a jar of sauce.
Pre-made.
But this source is really advocating for going the homemade route.
It really is worth it, though, to make it from scratch. I mean, there's just something about building those flavors from the ground up.
Okay, so talk to me about that. Like, how do you do that?
Well, you start with like your classic mirepoix,
Okay.
your onions, your carrots, your celery.
Okay.
Get those nice and diced up, and then you brown your ground beef. Get a nice good sear on that.
Okay.
Then you add in your tomatoes, your tomato paste, and some herbs and spices.
Huh.
And then you let it simmer for a good long time.
Okay.
And that's where the magic happens.
And what kind of, like, how long are we talking?
At least an hour.
At least an hour.
Yeah, preferably longer. Like 2 or 3 hours if you can.
So this is like a weekend.
It's
Or like a Sunday kind of a meal.
Yeah, Sunday gravy situation.
Okay.
But you can make a big batch of it, and then you've got leftovers for the week.
That's true. That's true. All right, so we're talking about like really building those layers of flavor
Absolutely.
and letting that simmer for a long time.
Yeah.
To really get that deep,
Rich. That low and slow method.
Okay. All right, cool.
Yeah.
So moving on then.
Okay.
From Italy, let's head over to
South of the border.
south of the border to Mexico for tacos.
Tacos.
Now, tacos are great because
So versatile.
they are so versatile.
Quick. I mean, you could throw them together on a weeknight. No
Yeah.
problem.
And this source mentions, your classic ground beef filling.
Right.
But you had mentioned something before we started recording about homemade tortillas.
Oh, yeah.
So is that realistic for like a
Absolutely.
weeknight taco situation?
It is easier than you think. It's really just masa harina water and a little bit of salt.
Okay.
You mix it all together, you press it out into little tortillas,
Mm.
and then you cook them on a hot griddle.
And how long does that take?
It's just a couple of minutes per side.
Couple of minutes per side.
Yeah, you'll know they're done when they start to puff up a little bit.
Okay, and you're saying the flavor is like way better than
Oh my gosh.
store-bought.
There's no comparison.
Yep.
Fresh homemade tortillas are just,
Wow.
they're so much more flavorful.
Okay, you've convinced me I'm going to have to try that.
You gotta try it.
All right, so we've got our bolognese, we've got our tacos.
Mm-hmm.
Now for our third stop on our like global ground beef tour,
Where are we going?
we're heading over to the UK.
Well,
For a
shepherd's pie.
classic shepherd's pie.
Yeah.
I think shepherd's pie is one of those dishes that's like,
Ultimate comfort food.
yeah, like the ultimate comfort food.
Especially on a cold night.
Yeah,
It's just so warm and hearty and satisfying.
absolutely. And this source kind of goes with like a pretty classic recipe.
Right.
But I wonder, are there any ways that we can kind of like jazz it up a little bit?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay.
Shepherd's pie is like a blank canvas for creativity.
Okay.
So, for example, you could try using a mix of ground beef and lamb for the filling,
Yeah.
or you could add some different vegetables like mushrooms or peas.
Okay.
And then for the topping, you could do a swirl of sweet potato and regular mashed potatoes.
Ooh, that's a good idea.
Or you could even do like a cheesy cauliflower mash
Okay.
if you're feeling adventurous.
I like that. I like that. So like really kind of taking those classic flavors,
Yeah.
but putting your own spin on it.
Exactly.
All right, cool.
Yeah.
Now we've done Italy, we've done Mexico,
Mm.
we've done the UK. What about the US? I feel like we need to do something that's very
All American.
all-American.
All right.
So the source that we have here actually mentions a couple of different options.
Okay.
One of them is stuffed bell peppers,
Stuffed bell peppers.
which I think is a great choice because it's kind of like
It's healthy and it's comforting at the same time.
it's healthy and it's comforting.
Yeah.
And it's like a complete meal.
It is. You've got your protein, your veggies, your carbs all in one package.
Yep, yep. And it's pretty easy to make, too.
It is. It's basically just ground beef, rice, veggies, and some seasonings all stuffed into a bell pepper.
Yeah. And, the bell peppers themselves are...
Packed with nutrients
Yeah.
like vitamin C and antioxidants.
Yeah. And you can get different colors, too.
Oh, yeah. You can use red, green, yellow, orange.
So it looks pretty on the plate.
Exactly. It's a feast for the eyes as well as the stomach.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Okay. And then our final ground beef dish
Okay.
is Sloppy Joe's.
Oh, the classic sloppy Joe.
Can't go wrong with a Sloppy Joe.
Can't go wrong. And it's so easy.
It is.
And kids love it.
Kids love it.
It's like the perfect,
Weeknight dinner.
weeknight dinner.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the source mentions like a classic recipe.
Right. But I feel like you might have some secret ingredient tips up your sleeve.
Well, the key to a good sloppy Joe is that sweet and tangy sauce.
Mm-hmm.
But here's a little secret.
Okay.
Add a dash of smoked paprika.
Smoked paprika.
Smoked paprika.
Yeah.
Okay. It adds a really nice depth of flavor.
Interesting. I've never thought of that.
You got to try it.
Okay. And then for toppings, I imagine you can get pretty creative.
Oh, absolutely. So you've got your classic like shredded lettuce and diced tomatoes.
Yeah.
But you could also add things like crunchy coleslaw,
Ugh.
pickled jalapenos, or
It's not
even a
bad.
fried egg
Whoa.
if you're feeling really decadent.
All right. Now you're talking
Gourmet sloppy joes.
gourmet sloppy joes. All right.
Oh,
Okay.
right.
So we've got our 5 recipes down,
Mm-hmm.
but this source also mentions some really great pro tips
Oh, yeah.
for making the most of our ground beef.
Absolutely.
So the first one is buying in bulk
Smart shopping.
and freezing portions.
Yeah,
Now, I know a lot of people do this because it's a great way to save money.
definitely.
But you mentioned something earlier about proper freezing technique.
Right.
So can you elaborate on that a little bit?
Yeah, so when you're freezing ground beef, you want to make sure that you portion it out first.
Okay.
So I like to use freezer-safe bags,
Okay.
and I'll press the ground beef flat into like a thin patty shape.
Okay.
This helps it freeze faster, and it also makes it easier to thaw later on.
Okay. That makes sense.
And then when you're sealing the bag, make sure you squeeze out as much air as possible.
Okay.
This will help prevent freezer burn.
Ah, so that's what that is.
Yeah.
Okay. I've always wondered about that.
Yeah. And then don't forget to label the bag with the date.
Ah, so you know
So you know how long it's been in there.
how long it's been in the freezer.
Exactly.
Okay, cool. So we've got our buying in bulk and freezing technique down.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the next tip that the source mentions is using extenders like breadcrumbs or oats.
Ah, the extenders.
Now, I've heard of this, but I've never actually tried it.
It's a great way to stretch your budget.
Okay, so it helps the ground beef go further.
Exactly.
Okay.
And it can also add moisture and texture to dishes like meatloaf meatballs or even burgers.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So how to use them effectively?
Well, the key is to use them sparingly.
Okay.
Too much can make the mixture dense.
Okay.
So for breadcrumbs, I recommend about 1/4 cup per pound of beef.
Okay.
And for oats, you want to make sure that they're finely ground before adding them.
Okay.
And I actually like to soak them in a little bit of milk or water for about 10 minutes,
Okay.
just to soften them up.
Okay. So it's all about not overdoing it,
Right.
making sure that they're incorporated well.
Exactly.
Okay, great tip. Great tip. And then our final tip is one that I think we all know, but it's always good to be reminded of.
Drain the fat.
Drain the fat.
So important.
Now, obviously, we know this is good for health reasons,
Right.
but are there any other reasons why this is so important?
Oh, absolutely. Draining the fat is also essential for flavor and texture. So if you don't drain the fat, your dishes can end up being really greasy. And the excess fat can actually mask the other flavors.
Interesting.
Yeah, so you really want to get rid of that excess fat so that the other flavors can shine through.
Okay, and are there any alternative cooking methods that can help reduce the fat content even more?
Yeah, absolutely. So if you're looking to reduce fat, you can try baking or grilling your ground beef.
Okay.
These methods allow the fat to drip away, so you end up with a leaner and often crispier final product.
Oh, okay, interesting. So instead of cooking it in a pan on the stovetop,
Right.
saying put it on a baking sheet.
Yep.
Or put it on the grill.
Yep.
And let that fat drip away.
Exactly.
Okay, cool. Cool. So there you have it, folks. Ground beef,
The humble hero.
the humble hero of the kitchen.
So versatile.
So versatile, so budget-friendly, and packed with so much potential. We've covered everything from classic recipes with surprising twists,
Mm-hmm.
to pro-level cooking tips that will hopefully elevate your ground beef game. I know I learned a lot today.
Me too.
I'm really excited to try some of these new things, like those homemade tortillas.
Oh, yeah. Those are a game
I
changer.
have to try that.
You gotta do it.
But I want to know, what about you guys listening at home? What are your favorite ground beef recipes? Do you have any like secret tips or tricks that you want to share?
Yeah, leave us a comment.
Leave us a comment. We'd love to hear from you.
We're always looking for new ideas.
Always looking for new ideas.
Yeah.
And, maybe it'll inspire us for our next deep dive.
Definitely.
All right. So until then, happy cooking, everyone.
Happy cooking. And one final thought.
Oh, yeah.
Something to chew on as you enjoy your next ground beef meal.
Okay.
Have you ever considered the journey of that ground beef from farm to table?
Ooh, that's a good one.
It's a complex process with a lot of different factors to think about, so maybe do a little research, learn about where your food comes from and how it gets to your plate.
That's a good point.
Food for thought.
Food for thought.
Yeah.
All right. Thanks, everyone. We'll see you next time.
See ya.